All right, we should be live. Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome to the Stream of Truth. I am Dr. Tassel Faith Shamebrook.
And I'm Sean Kelly.
And today's topic, I think it's kind of a mysterious sounding title.
Yeah, what do we call it? Going unconscious?
Going unconscious. What does this mean? What are we talking about here?
I think, so I guess I'll just start with myself and what precipitated this topic, I guess.
Yes.
So I guess the last few days I've been in this irritated, agitated state.
Yeah.
That's not normal for me. And I think I started to respond to things in unconscious patterns. I started to, I think because I wasn't being present, I wasn't in a state of peace that I tend to be. So when I'm not, I don't know how to be anymore. And then I think I just revert to programming or to patterning that I experienced through old narratives and things like that. I think it's pretty common. I think it's something that happens to everybody. And so I thought it was a good idea to talk about it. And, I think a big thing of it is just noticing when we're doing it. Noticing when we're just being unconscious. I think it's important to be able to admit that, oh, I was being unconscious there. I was not present. I wasn't really aware of what I was doing or saying or what was happening. Truly, I was just not there, really. I think it's really important to be able to admit that to ourselves and to other people as well, if necessary, like if it involves them. And so I think that's where it started from. And still today, I'm feeling very agitated and irritated and just like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know how to really put into words the feeling, and I don't know where it's come from or any of it. So I guess it's interesting for me to notice myself and how I respond to these types of things. And I don't think I've had something like this in a while. So it's kind of been a pain in the ass, to be honest.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been good.
I just want to honor you for your amazing honesty and transparency, and I would say even vulnerability in sharing this on the internet publicly. I know you can be very hard on yourself, and so I think especially sharing this is can possibly feel a little uncomfortable, maybe.
Yeah, I think I like to think of myself as the opposite of the state I'm in now.
Yeah.
So for me to be in this state and not really see an avenue out of it is challenging. I think to talk about it's also challenging because it's directly opposed to how I would like to present myself and how I would like to, I don't want to be seen in that light, really. But ultimately, I think it's more important that people understand that even people such as myself, who generally do pretty well in maintaining a sort of level of peace and tranquility in most situations, still have these types of situations. Or these types of like imbalances show up, and there's wobbles and there's bumps in the road sometimes, right? And so it's important, I think.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about many times that it feels like for both of us, part of what we wanted to do with this show, Stream of Truth, was to show up in all of our truth, in all of the warts and the wobbles and the things maybe we might even feel embarrassed about or not that great about, that was part of what we really wanted to do. And in part to share and model that all of us are figuring things out. That's why we're on this planet in part. And there's some, I don't know, there's this programming that we're supposed to be all together all the time or something. Who made that rule up? Like,
Yeah.
Isn't that ridiculous? I mean, so I just love that we're doing this right now. And I would like to share during this show, my own wobbles into my patterns that don't serve me, my old stories, and just be really honest about it. And I'm just so excited that you have the courage to do that. It's so exciting to me. I find it very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel super great to me right now, but I figure after we're done, then perhaps I'll feel better about things. I really don't know, but ultimately, I do think that it's helpful to talk about it, and talk about how we can fall into these old narratives and just sort of lose track of what we're doing and lose track of ourselves really in the process.
Yes. And I loved how you started off by saying just this ability to kind of zoom out and to observe ourselves. And oh, wow, look how I was acting, and I see the story I was holding. So just, isn't that probably the biggest part of this, is just that awareness of what was happening, the self-reflection.
Yeah, and for me, trying to notice how I got into that state, like how did I get to a place where I sort of shut it down? Like I think it's different for everybody. For me, I had a whole bunch of stuff to do with the children, with my kids. They were particularly grumpy for a few days, lots of crying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it had this, I think just being in that energy of that caused me to have to sort of just shut down a little bit. Maybe I was feeling too sensitive or something. And so, because it can feel like you can't please your children in those moments, at least for me.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating. It can be painful in different ways. So I think that sort of precipitated it. But I think the important thing isn't so much for my experience, but when we notice that we're doing these things, we, like you said, take a step back and start to understand, maybe how we got to that place. There's all these things that had occurred that sort of put me in this place of just irritability, closed off, just sort of in an agitated state. And it's persisted actually for a few days now. So it also could just be, it could even have nothing to do with the environment around me. It could literally be an energy thing or, something like that. There could be something going on that I'm not noticing that's affecting me as well in the world, perhaps. There's been a lot of people talking about dense energies right now and different things like that. I don't tend to pay too much attention to that, because I think that it's usually harmful for us to start attributing all of our experiences to other externalized events, and then saying I'm this way because of it. It sort of takes responsibility off of us. So I don't like to really make those types of excuses for myself, if I can help it. As nice as it might feel sometimes to do that.
Would it be okay just to give a little bit of an overview of what happened, just so people know kind of what we're talking about, and then
Sure.
maybe get into the details of the consciousness that was going on?
Sure.
I could start, or do you want to? Do you want to?
I guess basically, like, the easiest way for me to describe it, I don't think we need to go into the entire flow of events, but basically, so I explained that my children were being challenging. So that is hard for me because for a bunch of different reasons. One of the primary ones is that when my children are with me, I like them to be happy to be with me and happy in general. I only see them twice a week, and it's important to me that those 2 days go well. And so when they're not going well, or they feel like they're not how I want them to be, that's challenging for me just in itself. And then it felt like you were also upset around various things that had to do with the relationship, or me being at a distance. And then also, it just seemed like you were doing a lot of deep diving into yourself, and a lot of stuff was coming up, and you were sharing it, a lot of it with me. A lot of it was over text. And I think I just got like overwhelmed with all what I was seeing as just negativity. I was just basically, it just felt like everyone around me was just complaining at me, is how it felt. Including my children. And then my mom seemed also frustrated. And I didn't mention anything to her or talk to her about it, but she also seemed frustrated. So it just seemed like everyone around me was being like challenging for me. And I basically got frustrated, and I sort of snapped at you a little bit. I think I was feeling a lot of pressure to try and make everyone feel better. And, I was putting that pressure on myself. And this is where I was talking about with the unconscious. So I started to be unconscious. I wasn't consciously considering what was going on. I wasn't consciously like stepping back and trying to observe from a higher perspective. I wasn't doing any of the things that I almost always do. So I ended up just being like, okay, everybody's, I just fell into these narratives, these old narratives that I had that I hadn't really played with too much in more recent times. What
were the narratives?
Oh, just that, it just, people just constantly bring their troubles and whine and complain, and I can take things very personally when people are upset about something. If I have anything to do with it, I can take it very personally. So what I hear them saying is, Sean, you're not doing good enough. And it's not, that's not what they're saying generally. So, that's what I mean by the story or the narrative, is like, it's my own unworthiness that starts to show up. If I was enough, then they wouldn't be upset, or they wouldn't be having these issues. But because I'm not enough, then here are the issues that they're having, because I'm not enough for them, in various ways. So this all shows up, and then I guess I just responded. I responded angrily. I got angry. I got frustrated, and I was like, I think sarcastic, and then I think like I also was in the middle of like 3 things when we were talking, so I just wasn't paying any attention really properly. That's basically the gist of it. I wasn't paying attention, and I got frustrated.
Can I ask, when you said you got angry or frustrated, like what maybe was the underlying, was it you felt like powerless in a way, or you felt responsible for other people and didn't know what to do? What was the anger? What was the flavor of the anger?
I think I just wanted to be left alone. I think I just wanted people to leave me alone. I felt I was internalizing all of the other people's issues and things that they were saying, and personalizing them, making it about me and why I'm not worthy. And it was just sort of happening so much that I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I think you know, it's hard because I didn't notice that I was in these narratives until after. Good morning, Jamie. That's all right. We were a few minutes late too, getting started. But I didn't notice these narratives were even playing until after I had, you know, like I sort of realized that I was snippy and sarcastic. And you know, then I was like, what am I doing? So then I was able to notice it, which was even harder because then I just got mad at myself for doing that also. So now I feel unworthy and guilty and shameful. So it and I think that's sort of just sat with me now throughout the last few days. I've just felt like crap, I guess. So I think like you said, I'm a little hard on myself, and it's challenging. I think we're all pretty hard on ourselves. So, or we can be, and I think it's I'm just happy that I noticed it, that I was doing it, and yeah, I think it's better that I notice it and that I try to move through it and do it in a more just for next time, like maybe try to notice when I'm falling into that state. I'm not sure. I need to work on it more, but I don't know really what happened. I just sort of fell into this state and just old patterns just started going off without me really seeming to have any real control or say. And that's how you can obviously tell that you're acting unconsciously, you're acting reactive. You're not really there deciding. It's just sort of bleh, comes out.
Yeah, it's almost like the program takes you over. I know. I'll just share an example of a time when I went very unconscious, and it was around my kids. There have been several times I've gone unconscious with my kids, and they were all at times when I was feeling a lot of stress. I can remember several times around my divorce custody situation where I was just so stressed out of my mind. And I remember, for instance, one situation where my kids were about to go back to their dad. I wouldn't see them for a week. And then their dad and I were just at war. And my heart was just broken, eviscerated. And we had this pull-out bed in one of the rooms in the house I was renting. And the pull-out bed would not go back in. I was like, the kids had slept on it that night, and I was trying to just put it back together. Partly because any like signs of my kids once they had left felt just so painful to me. So I just kind of wanted to get the bed back. So I just helped me not think about them so much. And the bed just wouldn't go back in. You know, it was a convertible bed. It would not go back in. And that was just like a final straw for me at that moment. I just lost it. I think I started crying, and my kids were upset that I was so upset, and they were about to leave. And I think I said things that were not very highest and best. And as I was saying them, there was a part of me that was like, what are you doing? Stop what you're doing. You're out of control. This is not going well. But then this other part of me, the unconscious program I was in, it wouldn't stop. And it was this awful feeling inside. I wanted it to stop, and I couldn't make it stop in that moment. And I've had several experiences like that with my kids and with other people too, not just my kids. And it's a very humbling experience. And the only way I know how to not do that, and I'm still learning, is to try to like notice all the time where I'm at with things. Like if I start to feel like, oh my gosh, I think I'm getting kind of stressed here. I think I could be entering a path here where things might not go well. And then try to remove myself and calm down. And, I know we all know this. It's just, are we able to do it? Like, this is common sense, right? This is not a mystery what we're talking about, but it's this amazing mastery to just every time we kind of have those moments to reflect, okay, what did happen? How can I maybe do a little bit better the next time?
Yep.
And then like massive grace and forgiveness to ourselves, to the people we may have hurt, apologies. I have apologized to my children so many times.
Yeah.
And I do think that helps. I think, when you do say hurtful things, unconscious things, and you do apologize, I do think that helps a lot. And to ask the other person, I've asked my kids this many times, like, is there anything I can do? Can you tell me about what you experienced? I want to know, so part of that Imago dialogue that we did a series on. So me allowing space for my kids to tell me what they experienced when I was being unconscious, and to validate, to summarize, to validate, and to empathize with them. And then what I also like to do is tell them how I'm going to try to do things differently in the future so that doesn't happen again. That's what I try to do.
Yeah, I think this is just my theory that when we are getting upset, we have a threshold. We all have a threshold, like a breaking point.
Yes.
And I think what happens is we slowly approach it. A lot of times we make ourselves stay in the situation, or we overestimate our ability to maintain our peace in situations, or we, whatever it is. But when we hit that threshold, I think part of us just steps away. Part of us often just says, forget it. And then I think what ends up happening is it just feels safer in the moment for us to just allow the programming to start to take over. I don't think we know really what to do about the feelings we're having. And then the programming goes, I know what to do. We can yell at them. Or we can insult, we can attack, or we can scream or throw things. We can do all these various things.
And can I just pause here for a second? And I think what happens is when we start to yell or blame or criticize someone, it's in part because we are so uncomfortable inside ourselves. And in that moment, it feels easier to project all of that onto someone else, to blame and criticize someone else for what the internal discomfort we're experiencing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. So it just feels, I think, safer to let the robot, basically let the robot mind thing take over. I don't even know what to call it. Let it take over and just enact whatever narratives are there. At least then you're doing something. And so you can feel more comfortable. Now, I think me and you are similar in the way that there's a voice going, what the hell are you doing? I have that as well. And even when I was like responding to you, I think, and saying something a little snippy, or sarcastically, that voice is going, what are you doing? Why are you?
Okay. So you had that voice was going off.
Yeah, I have that too. And then I'm like, shut up. I'm busy. I don't know what I was thinking, but oh yeah, Jamie said energy's been weird the last few days. Poor Joe's catching it all from me. I see it, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is either. Yeah, I was just talking about that with Tassel before the stream as well. Joe said he'd rather be catching it than not. Yeah, yeah. You know what's ride or die? Is that that's what the kids say now, right? Ride or die or something, right? You gotta do it together. So I yeah, energy is wacky, I think. So I think that contributed a lot for me because I felt irritated and agitated before anything even happened. I was already like, I think Friday is when it really started.
Yeah.
Friday in the morning when we were about to talk about all the Patreon stuff, and thank you again for joining and everything. Really appreciate it. But as we were starting that, I started to feel weird. And then it just got sort of worse and worse, and then I started to fall into patterns. So but yeah, so we fall into the patterns because I think it just feels a little safer. It's sort of
when
like,
you say safer, I'm wondering, like, for me, it's like the word is familiar.
Right. I don't think it's actually safer. I think it's an illusion.
It's more like, it's more a danger zone, at least for me.
It is a danger zone.
It's like a familiar misstep that I'm taking. Like, I'm going to go here. It's familiar. I've been here before. It actually feels awful. It doesn't feel safe. To me, it feels awful when I go there. It feels awful.
Yeah, no, awful. I think part of it is sort of like, I like to think we have a higher mind, like a higher mind and then a lower mind. And the lower mind acts on programming. The higher mind is the consciousness that's sort of observing and stuff. And I think what sort of happens is the lower mind, because it does have a whole bunch of actions that it wants to do, it has a whole bunch of stuff that it raises its hand and says, I know what we can do. And then the higher mind, which is confused, irritated, upset, whatever, doesn't have the resilience to sort of say, no, that's not the way. It's sort of like it doesn't know what to do with its hands. So
the lower mind has like a quick fix. Just do this, you'll feel better, like, for a moment. You're gonna like let something out. You'll feel like maybe a little better in that moment, but then overall it's sort of a disaster.
Yeah, it's not actually safer, and it doesn't actually feel better in any type of meaningful way.
It's almost just like a release. It's like the lashing out is this release of the energy that's so uncomfortable inside you, but then it creates a lot of collateral damage. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's interesting, if I can just share this, like, and there's things that I could have done way better in our whole thing over the weekend. And I want to spell those out in a minute, but I also want to say that I could sense where things were going. And I reached out to you. I said, could you please call me just for a minute? Because I was trying to stop what I could see was about to unfold. And it seemed like you saw that text, but then you just kept going with what you were doing. Like, that part of you had taken over and really wanted to express this to me. So it's just interesting, like, when that part takes over, it can be very, very strong, very strong.
Yeah, well, I saw your message that said that you wanted me to call you, and I just said, okay, I'll call her in a minute. And then I finished typing what I was saying, so I didn't think much of it. I just thought, okay, I'll call after this, and then I sent it, and then, anyway. Yeah, it does. It takes over, and it's I think it's, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's important to try to give ourselves some grace with it. Like you said, give ourselves some, like, forgive ourselves basically for, like, sometimes we drop the reins and, like, the chariot goes all over the place. Right. And, the important thing is that we're noticing it, and we feel bad about it because we don't want to be that way, and all these things. So these are the important things. It would have been just as easy for me to just ignore it all and pretend that I was right to be angry or these things. So it's really important, I think, to try to give yourself some leeway, I guess.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's hard sometimes, especially if you're like I'm generally pretty good at being balanced, and there are certain areas that are harder for me, but like when I'm not, like for days on end and I don't even really know what's going on or anything, it's very hard for me to even understand what's going on. I get mad at myself. I get upset with everything.
Yes.
So it's I'm just very triggerable, I think, too, in that state, and I don't even know what's going on. So it's really easy for me to get carried away.
Yeah.
Take care, Joe. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it.
And to your point that you just said, when we have these momentary wobbles, I like to use that word, wobbles, where we say things that we might regret, or we said something hurtful, that doesn't have to define us or the relationship. What is most important is the way that anyone interacts with anyone else. Like there may be missteps. There may be things we do that looking back, we would like to do them differently. But they don't have to define us. We don't have to draw conclusions about our identity from certain things that we do. And it feels like the most important thing is just when we self-reflect and we apologize if it seems that would be helpful, and then we see if we can do things a little bit differently. That's the path we're on as human beings.
I think it's important to recognize it for what it is. It basically is meaningless. If we're already on this path of expansion and trying to be awake and conscious, we already know that that's not how we want to be.
Yes.
We don't need to beat ourselves up about it. We can just go, I didn't mean these things, really. I was confused. I said some angry things.
Yes.
It's kind of irrelevant. Now, of course, if you say something to other people, there's restitution, forgiveness, different things that maybe need to be discussed. Maybe they have feelings about what you said. So there's things to talk about there, and it's not to minimize what you did or to say that, well, it's fine, get over it. It doesn't mean like that, but it really was meaningless nonsense. That's really what it was. It was the unconscious part of the body or the mind or whatever we call it has come out and said some shit, and it's nonsense. And we could just see it for what it is, nonsense, and go, okay, well, I said some nonsense, and I didn't mean it. I'm sorry about it. And basically just let yourself off the hook a little bit for it, knowing that you don't intend to do this more. It's not something you're looking to continue. So there's not really any benefit in holding on to this shame about it or anything like that.
Yes, absolutely. To see it as a life experience. This is just a life experience. To hold space for the other person if they were wounded and they need some help sort of healing that wound, and to hold space for yourself. But it's a life experience. It is a life experience that will only help us expand and grow. And I do think that in a beautiful way, in relationship, when we can move through these types of experiences with each other and help each other through it and talk it out and heal any wounds, that it actually strengthens the relationship, not the opposite. If we don't attend to the wounds after, then of course that can really hurt the relationship. But if we're able to come together afterwards and see, oh, look, we can move through something like that. We can talk about it. We can heal. To me, that makes the relationship even stronger, because there will be times where there's some things come up and someone may not act, ideally.
I think when us who are, and this is going to sound a little polarizing, or and I'm not meaning it to sound this way, but when the conscious awakened soul is around a bunch of unconscious souls, not unconscious, but people that are more tied into the programming, and not able to manage their emotions and things like that.
Yeah.
I think we can just pick it up and start to like mirror it in many ways. I think we can like just fall out of our own like presence, and it's our responsibility. It's not their fault, right? That's the most important thing. It's our responsibility to remain present and at peace and in balance, regardless of what's around us. That's our responsibility. So I'm never saying that, point it. But what I am saying is, when you're going to those situations, like, try to know this about yourself. If you're affected the way that I seemed to be, I'm fine if everyone's fairly okay. But when everyone seems agitated, then like I pick it up, I guess, and I start to be agitated. So for me, it's just, I have to be very careful of myself in that way, and pay more attention to it. So look for those things.
Just to know yourself,
Yeah.
and know what might be a challenge for you. And I always think about like sort of this difference between, say, a monk in a cave who is meditating and expanding their consciousness, but not really interacting in any way with other people, versus in Kundalini yoga, we call them the householders, the people who are on the spiritual path, but they have kids and jobs and they run households. And so to me, it's really interesting, the two different paths, and to really strengthen that muscle of our presence when so much can be going on around us. Like, wow, that's quite a path. And that really, to me, it's in a more advanced track in some ways, because it's more, I think it's more challenging.
Yeah, actually, just in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says basically what you just said is the better path. So like, a lot of us will hold monks in a sort of esteem, and certainly there is something that's really awesome about what they're doing when they do these solo consciousness explorations into themselves.
Yes.
So that, I'm not trying to minimize any of that. But it's much more difficult to hold a peace while you're in a funhouse of mirrors. And there's all sorts of wacky things happening all around you, chaos in different areas, different ways that chaos can show up in the family, the household, whatever it is, work. There's a particular skill of balance that gets honed in those situations that the monk doesn't really hone that way.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and then the monk, on his or her part, is honing some other things that we're not. So, each path is beautiful and has its own gifts and challenges, but to remain peaceful and present amongst chaos, amongst human chaos, is quite challenging.
Yeah, and if you get pretty good at it, you'll start to take it for granted. And then you'll have the experience that I had this weekend, where like basically you're always humbled. This has been my experience. Whenever you feel like you're just amazing at something tends to come along and humble you. And I feel like that's a lot of what this was. I was starting to feel very grounded and balanced, and I started to wonder, once I start to wonder, am I just going to be in this state forever now? That's something comes in.
Catalyst will come in.
Yeah. So, and I think for me, that's part of the lesson, is that like, I don't think it's realistic to expect myself to be balanced constantly forever. Yes. Although that is my goal still somehow. It's sometimes not really realistic, depending on what's going on. And, like, even even this weekend when I started to feel just agitated and everything, like while I was getting angry with you, I was realizing, like, internally, I was like, she hasn't done anything. You're creating a narrative and getting pissed off at it. And like, I was telling myself this, but I was still going. Like, so
Yeah.
it's a very odd place to be, I think.
Yeah.
It's challenging. It's challenging, but it's especially when, like, you know, Jamie said the energy's weird. I'm not usually too sensitive to energies. I don't tend to have too many issues, but the last few days have been just wacky for me. Like waking up just pissed. And I'm like, I have to be awake right now. This is garbage. And just like literally upset that I have to get up and do something, and or you know, like trying to get a coffee and like the door doesn't open properly, and I slip my hand off it and it closes, and I'm like, I gotta open it again, have a little spaz out.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like the couch that you were trying to push in, like, or when I was trying to get my chair through the door, I couldn't get it. I'm like, and I like just shove it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with me. I don't usually sit in this type of, like, almost like a rage in me that's just wanting to come out or something. And it feels totally unnatural for me to let that out. So I don't really know how to healthily let rage out, to be honest. Like in a healthy way. What I normally do with rage is turn it around and look at it in a different way. It doesn't seem, there's no cause to the rage. So how do I look at it? I don't know. Anyway.
And just, you know, that's interesting what you just said, that sometimes we will feel things and we don't even know why. And we may not ever particularly know why. It's even possible these are energies from other lifetimes that are coming in. Who knows? But I think we can just let ourselves off the hook there. We don't necessarily need to know why.
Right.
We might be feeling something, but to honor, okay, anger is coming up for me. I don't know why. Maybe I'm not super even happy about it, but there it is. I'm feeling angry, and to honor that, and to look into ways to, as best you can, move that through you, which will be different for everybody. And I wanted to say a couple other points that this was really helpful for me to hear your experience about all of this, because we did talk yesterday a bit and a little bit this morning, but you opened up, but you opened up so much here, and it was just really helpful for me to have more understanding of what you were going through. It just helps me understand so much more. So I think in a relationship, when we do have these experiences, like the more we can open up with each other and share, it just brings understanding. You know, it lessens like the bad guy sort of identity that could be placed on someone. Like just to, oh my gosh, that's what that person was going through.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to understand more what you were experiencing. And then you talked about the spiritual ego, I guess we could call it, would maybe like to always be balanced and always be masterful and always be present and all, you know, all of that. And to maybe really acknowledge that is probably not going to happen maybe in this lifetime.
I think I can do it. I think I can do it. I think I can get there. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to that type of state. But I shouldn't hold myself to it the way I do either. So
yeah, I think that's the thing. I think it's so wonderful to have that goal and that ideal. And then just, okay, I am a human being. I'm a spiritual being in a human body. These things, to give ourselves grace.
Yes. Yes.
And then one other point I wanted to make is something that I take away from this whole experience that we had together was for me to be more mindful of your environment and your context. And even you maybe possibly even communicating, oh my God, my kids they're kind of, a handful right now. They're really grumpy. Like in my mind, I think I always had a picture that when you're with your kids, you're just so happy because you only see them on the weekends. So I think I didn't even imagine that you were going through some frustrating times with your kids, which is ridiculous because I've had little kids and I know they can be really difficult. So, and that there's sort of a time and a place for sharing certain things, and texting can be a little tricky because it's not really clear always what the tone is. And so there was just some learning for me too in this experience. And I know that I can do things in a more harmonious way as well.
Yeah. Jamie said there's a blood moon lunar eclipse on Friday as well. So, I've often felt a lot like a werewolf or a lycanthrope or something, where, eclipses and moons mess me up. So that would explain it to me. Moons seem to just totally mess with me. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think part of it for me is that I don't like to complain. So I don't like to say that I'm having a hard time or that I'm whatever. I don't like to talk like that. So yeah, I don't tend to.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't tend to feel as much draw to say those types of things.
Yeah, it's interesting. You use that word complain. And to me, I don't really even understand totally what that word means, at least for me. What I'm talking about is sharing. What I would term it is sharing that, oh, yeah, my kids are kind of grumpy and it's not maybe easy for me. To me, I just see that as a share of the truth. I don't see that as a complaint. And maybe we're mincing words here, but to me, just sharing one's truth about what you're feeling, what's going on, to me, I find that to be helpful.
I don't tend to for myself because I know that it's judgment and it's lacking compassion and it's negative. For me, that's how it feels. So that's why I call it complaining. It feels negative to me, and complaining to me would be negative. To me, it's just sort of noticing an aspect of reality that's not making me happy and going, look at that. Look at how that doesn't make me happy. And that to me doesn't tend to resonate. Sometimes I can feel like that's all everybody does. And so I can get very frustrated with that as well, and get triggered by that as well, just on itself, with other people talking about things they don't like or that type of thing. And not that I don't ever do it. I'm not saying I don't ever do it, but and I'm not saying there's anything even wrong with it. If I was more outward with what was going on for me, then it would have been more, there'd be more just clarity around the whole situation. And perhaps some of the stuff would have been avoided. So, I think, I don't know.
And sort of from what you said, what comes up for me is that my path in my life feels to me to honor whatever is arising in me, to not judge it. So if I I am feeling anything about anything, just to honor that. Whether the thinking mind might think it's negative or positive, I don't really traffic in that anymore. I just honor whatever is my internal experience. And I don't like live there. I don't live there, but I honor it. And then I go back to, I would say, my vision for my life and positivity and all of that. But I honor whatever is coming up in me. And that to me has been a very life-changing practice. There's no judgment. There's no judgment. I honor myself, and I honor others as well.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't honor our feelings or judge ourselves for our feelings. I just express differently.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone has their own path, and it's interesting to share what we each do. So do we have, maybe to wrap up, any like final tips for unconscious moments?
I don't really have any tips. The best tip that I can give, I think I've already given, but it's sort of just to be aware. Try to be aware if you're moving into situations that might trigger you to feel or become more unconscious or fall into old patterns. Like another thing that I did this weekend was I went to my son's birthday party with my ex-wife there and the kids, and there was a whole bunch of people there, and it was at my old house where I used to live. So I went into all the old environment. Yeah. So there was a lot of just obvious in hindsight or in retrospect, there's a lot of obvious things that would bring me back into old patterns. Yeah. It's hard for me as well when there's these holidays and birthdays and things. I can feel very, very guilty and ashamed for not being with my children as much, and these types of things. And so I knew the weekend was going to be hard. And so I guess my advice is I just didn't really think about how I would behave from that. I just sort of was thinking it's gonna be a tough weekend. I'll get through it. But noticing those sort of things that maybe trigger us into these states, and then trying to not avoid them, but just be aware and try to maintain a certain level of presence or self-awareness while there. That's I think the best thing you can do. But then most importantly, I think, is after the case, like after you've done something, went unconscious, had a little tantrum or something, just to be able to give yourself the space to have felt that, and try to learn from it, try to learn what happened, why you got there, let yourself a little bit off the hook, but obviously take responsibility for what you said, or what you did. But you're actively already trying not to do that. That's why you care so much that you did it, right? So just notice that that's the part that is good, and you don't have to focus on, I made this mistake. It's not a mistake. It was just you're learning.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
I really love the phrase, there is no failure. There's only experience. It's all we're just experiencing. I really like what you said about knowing yourself enough to be aware of certain situations that you might enter into that could be painful or triggering, where you might even tend to go unconscious. So just being aware before you go into those situations, having that self-reflection about that. And then this idea that, yes, we are all just always experiencing. We're kind of in, a classroom, you could say, an adventure, this journey of experiencing, and everything we do, it's an experience, and we can always learn from it. And then the last thing I want to share is when we maybe, if we have gone unconscious or we've done something that we aren't super pleased about and might want to do things differently, to not abandon ourselves in those moments, to not be so hard on ourselves that we kind of take our own love away from ourselves. And I've been saying this mantra a lot recently. It's been so helpful to me. Just simply like, I am here for you, to myself. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. So even when, we had this kind of difficult interaction and my feelings were hurt, I was able to just be like, I am here for myself. I'm here for myself. And I think that practice, maybe more than anything, to me, is so helpful in every aspect of life, that to be your own best friend, to be your own hero, to be your own mother, to be whatever you need, that you are always there for yourself, that you will always give yourself grace, that you will always give yourself unconditional love, is really powerful.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good place to end. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you for bearing with me with my like kind of agitated state. I think I did all right on the in the stream, but like.
And I'm just kind of curious. Do you feel any shift at all from what you expressed? Oh, okay, you don't.
No,
okay.
No. I think I need to it felt good. I think just to talk about it a bit.
Yeah.
And to reflect on it. Outwardly, I think part of our thinking process is for us to say stuff, whether we say it to others or just to ourselves. It's hard to get around the full cognitive wheel without speaking, I think. But so yeah, I guess I feel a little bit better. Not really though. I still pretty much just feel annoyed. Yeah, I basically am just annoyed. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I don't really know why. Everything's just annoying me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it.
Well, I think that's real, and as I said earlier, to honor, that's what's coming up for you.
Yeah, that's what's coming up. Yeah. I'm annoyed.
Not judge whatever's coming up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Thanks everyone. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
And just a couple of things. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, it would be awesome to subscribe if the channel resonates with you. And then we also have this amazing Patreon membership with just lots of cool stuff. So that link is in the description.
Yes, it is.
We will see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
So much love to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.